Welcome to Marvel-ous Disney.
Welcome to Marvel-ous Disney, the podcast that tries to keep you informed about all the current doings at one of the Walt Disney Company's more interesting divisions, Marvel. As for who the us is, I'm Jim Hill, and let me bring in my favorite Marvel expert, Aaron Adams. Aaron, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and if I'm leaving anything out, I'm sorry, but
Festivus.
Festivus. Let's complain about
That's
Festivus.
right. I've got my aluminum pole here ready to go.
Awesome.
Given the time of year we're recording the show, folks, we're going to do something a little different with this show. We are looking back on 2017 as well as looking forward to, honestly, what looks like an amazing year for Disney and Marvel coming in 2018. We've kind of broken down our roles a little differently here. Aaron's actually going to weigh in with some opinions here about how things did over the year. I'm going to fall back on my standard numbers guy thing. We'll do a quick walkthrough of the big things for 2017, which actually started off way on the other side of the world, January 11, 2017. With the opening of Hong Kong Disneyland's Iron Man experience. Now, you're familiar with this, Aaron, right?
Actually, no. I've been so absorbed in the movies and the cinematic universe and the TV shows, and I've always been so far away from a Disneyland or a Disney World that it requires an amount of vacation I've never had available to me.
Okay, well, hopefully we can change that in the not-so-distant future, because as I understand it, this attraction is coming to Anaheim in the not-so-distant future. This is actually envisioned to be part of the Marvel land that's going to be sort of expanding out at Disney's California Adventure out around the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout attraction. But it's basically sort of Star Tours revisited, only you start off with a visit to the Stark Expo, and then in the fine Disney tradition, something goes horribly wrong. But it's been incredibly well received, and again, it's on its way here, stateside, or at least to the Anaheim Disney Resort fairly soon. And speaking of something that wasn't necessarily all that well received, March 23rd of this year, the first season of Iron Fist dropped on Netflix. And You did watch this, right?
Unfortunately, yes, I did watch it. I rooted for it, but man, I had problems from beginning to end with it. It was my least favorite of all of the Defenders shows. So it's actually in my countdown list. Not quite dead bottom. Something else was below that.
Okay.
So when we get to the countdown list, we'll reveal that.
Jumping ahead here to May 5th of this year, that's when we got our next installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which James Gunn and Chris Lord and the crew coming back with much enthusiasm. And what was kind of interesting is this is the first time day and date with the movie opening at Disney's Hollywood Studios. In fact, if you were in Florida, you could have gone over to the Disney Springs AMC theaters, caught the movie, and then gone over to Disney Hollywood Studios and actually met with Star-Lord and a baby Groot, which Nancy and I actually got to experience this past November when we were down for a Disney press event. And the puppet, I initially thought, okay, so it's something that's kind of on a cycle, and it turns out, no, it's actually being puppeteered from backstage. It interacts with you in the moment. The Star-Lord or the cast member who's playing Star-Lord kind of guides you through what's going on. But it was this baby Groot puppet who's about, I want to say, 8 inches, maybe 9 inches tall, but really cleverly done. So that opens on the East Coast, and then just 3 weeks later on the West Coast, we have the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout on May 27th. And again, I think we told the story in the show here where James Gunn was on stage talking about how thrilled he was that he actually got to make a Disney theme park attraction, that most people dream of getting Oscars when they work in film. And it's like, no, I want an attraction. In fact, they carved out an entire day during the shooting of Volume 2 just to create the film elements for this attraction. But very quickly became the most popular attraction on the West Coast, according to the guest surveys. In fact, and Disney had been very, very nervous about this because, of course, this was a replacement for Tower for California. And same day that this debuts, California rolls out a summer-long Summer of Heroes promotion at that same theme park where they introduced Avengers Training Initiative stunt show. You could have what they called heroic encounters, which are basically meet and greets with Spider-Man, Captain America, Black Widow, and one of the odder but more fun things, they actually had a Guardians of the Galaxy awesome dance-off where...
It fits.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, Star-Lord won the first movie with a dance-off, so sure, why not? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and then jump ahead to July, we had a film that, as we'll point out later in the show, you think very, very highly of. Spider-Man Homecoming rolled into theaters. It was one of my favorite times of the movie this year. I think they made so many smart choices. Let's remember, this was the infamous Sony basically reaching out to Marvel Studios and to Disney, and it's like, help.
Yeah, and thank God they had the reason of mind to do that. Mm-hmm. It was a good deal for everybody involved.
No, absolutely. And it's the gift that keeps on giving between the way that character was introduced in 2016 with Captain America.
Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That was killer. And to have that pay off with the way that Iron Man and...
Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it just works within the film. It was amazing.
Yep.
Jumping ahead just a few weeks here, July 15th, the D23 Expo, Bob Chapek, the head of Disney Parks and Resorts, reveals that a Guardians of the Galaxy ride will be opening at Epcot in 2019. This is a replacement for Ellen's Energy Adventure, the longtime Future World attraction, which actually then closed on August 3rd of this year.
Okay.
Jumping ahead, same month, August 19th, Marvel Spider-Man animated series. This, I think, is the third since Disney acquired Marvel back in 2009.
I haven't kept track of a lot of the animated stuff after the Disney acquisition. Usually, whenever there was a Spider-Man cartoon, I would just go out and buy the DVD set and then plow through it. So if there's 3, that means I got to go at least buy 2 and prepare to buy a third one.
Well, I guess what intrigues me about this one is they went in with a very heavy STEM sensibility to the show. I mean, the whole notion is that Peter Parker is able to do what he does because he's as bright as he is. And it's just, it's been an interesting show. I don't know if it's entirely successful, but it's one of those things where, what's the polite way to put this? The chocolate-covered bran muffin?
Yeah. Like Bill Nye the Science Guy, you know, he was able to deliver information and knowledge through entertainment and breaking things down for kids to understand, which I'm all for. If you can sneak in education into your entertainment for the kids, more power to you. I think it's a great thing.
I guess my only concern is that so many of the classic Spider-Man villains have turned out to be teachers at this school that somehow then get turned. It just brings into question, what is the school bird's hiring practice?
Right.
Do you have some emotional issues or incipient superpowers that we should be aware of before we...
Look, when they're not getting reimbursed for the investments they make in school supplies, they have to resort to villainy to recoup some of that money. So that's the explanation I can come up with.
Okay. All right. Sliding ahead to September here. We have 15th of that month. We have a first for Disney. They had just opened in May the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout attraction, and here's a brand new version of that very same ride. That actually, it's kind of a sequel. It's called Monsters After Dark, and the conceit of this attraction is that the rescue attempt that you had previously taken part in Mission Breakout, breaking the Guardians out of the collector's display, so to speak, you'd accidentally left Groot behind, and now you have to go back into the building, but now all the monsters have been let loose. And it was a ridiculously entertaining take on this attraction. And the fact that they were able to knock this out within just a few months of the opening. And not only that it was just this thing that only ran in the parks from the 15th of September through October 31st, and then it was gone.
Right.
In fact, that was also the other fun conceit of the attraction, is that this only became the Monsters After Dark. They had to wait till the sun went down or it was dusk, and then they would change the ride profile. And finally, on the last air show, it was so hugely popular and there were so many people who wanted to ride the thing. They were like, okay, fine. Our Halloween treat to everyone is that Monsters After Dark will run all day long. But looking very much forward to that coming back in 2018. Meanwhile, another arm of the Disney company walks out, the Disney Cruise Line. They launch a Marvel Day at Sea promotion on October 6th of this year. this is the first time really that they had begun walking the Marvel characters, putting them on the cruise line. And so you could do meet and greets with Spider-Man, Iron Man, and again, looking ahead here to what's coming in February, Black Panther. And then likewise, there were also other classic Marvel characters on the boat. You could get time with Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Doctor Strange himself.
I got to ask you one very important question as a Marvel geek.
Yep.
Are these guys in movie quality costumes, or are they in thrift store looking costumes?
It's funny that you bring that up because so many of these outfits were so elaborate. You have a lot of little kids who maybe just come from the buffet. So supposedly they travel with 3 sets of costumes for each performer that's assigned to play a character on a cruise. And as they come off stage, that very ridiculously expensive outfit, it has to then be meticulously cleaned and be ready to go into the rotation further on down the line. And yeah, if anything, I remember talking with the folks who were doing the Doctor Strange outfit, and let's put it this way, you could have bought several cars for what they spent on his cloak.
Okay, good. See, now that would make it worth it to me, because there's really nothing that would excite me that much to go, ooh, I really have to go do that or travel to this location. But if I did have a stable of Marvel characters all in like movie quality costumes, and I could be on that boat and just geek out for a week and take really up close photographs, because I mean, as a nerd, you really want to be able to see all the detail and embroidery and the stupid stuff that you can't really get to see in the movies and whatnot. So if I were walking up to Captain America and he had a plastic shield, I'd be highly offended because I've got a metal shield myself. And it's like, why don't you have one? You should have one.
Well, it's so funny you bring this up because the Imagers really worked hard at preserving what we know of the Marvel world. Like, for example, they had a Thor meet and greet that was actually at Disneyland, but they had this wonderful moment where the cast member playing Thor would just sort of be there hoisting his hammer and then place it down on a platform in front of you and invite you to pick it up. And you couldn't.
The electromagnet gag.
There we go. But again, the lovely thing was that he could do it, but you could not. And for the Marvel fans, they were actually kind of thrilled that the rules that we have seen from the comics and the movies apply in this space.
That's awesome. That's a nice detail that you can't get anywhere else. And I'm happy to see they take those extra steps because that's what makes it worth the experience.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of Thor, of course, November 3rd of this year, we had Thor Ragnarok come out, and we've obviously talked about that on this podcast previously, and both big fans of that. Same thing, November 29th of this year, the teaser trailer for Avengers Infinity Wars came out. By the way, did you see that this trailer was viewed 230 million times in the first 24 hours it was available online?
Not surprised at all.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the first movie directed by Jon Favreau, Iron Man, was 2007? So we've got a full decade invested into this. And again, like I said in the previous show, there are so many individual superheroes that someone may be a personal fan of that they may not have to care about Thor and Cap. If they love Iron Man, they're going to see Avengers. And it works for every one of those heroes. If you don't care about Iron Man and you love Thor, you're going to still see it. So, I mean, you got 10 years invested in the story. Everybody wants to see Thanos. You've got all these heroes coming from every corner of the Marvel universe, and they're all going to be there. So, yeah, if you're a fan of anything that Marvel's done in the last 10 years, there's something in it for you. And that's a wide net.
No, and let's face it, the net got wider on December 14th, when finally the deal we've been talking about actually happened. Disney buys the select assets from 21st Century Fox. Precise financials, $52.4 billion deal, but Disney also assumed $13.7 billion of debt that Fox had accumulated. Total $69 billion, but totally an all-stock deal. Upside is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe just got bigger. In fact, my understanding is the plans for the fourth part of the series are very much in flux at the moment because it's determining what do we do? How do we acknowledge this? How do we bump out the borders? And at the same time, evidently, Kevin Feige has been warning everybody. It's like, look, I want us to be proactive here, but I want us to be realistic. We are a year to a year and a half before we're going to know that this deal is closed, that there's a number of governmental agencies and that sort of thing have to sign off on this. And between what's going on with Sky over in Europe, this could go south. So it's just sort of like stay the course, but be aware of the possibilities, the opportunities here.
They're probably creating a plans A, B, and C. A, if we move forward, B, if it goes south, and C, if we get something, but not all of it. The other contingency, whatever that may be.
I've heard through friends that there's actually been some conversations about reaching out to Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart. And it's one of these things where it's like, for me, and I get that. I get that you would want to have sort of a torch passing moment.
Right.
But given what just happened with Logan, didn't we just pass the torch? And
first off, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the X-Men Fox continuity that had been rewritten through later films. And just because we saw the end of Logan's life doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't some other key event that happened somewhere just a few months or years before that. You know, I mean, they gave him gray hair and a thick beard and made him look old. The dude's ripped and he can look 5 to 10 years younger than that very easily with a shave and better makeup. So, I mean, they can still do a Logan story. I just don't think that whole thing works just because of what I had hypothesized in the earlier episode of the way that Storm summons lightning and the world is afraid of her, Thor summons lightning, the world loves him. The two worlds that they're living in right now don't jive with one another at the moment. So I think a relaunch is in order. And besides, you've had many movies with a Professor Xavier played by Patrick Stewart, and then we've had another one that was played by James McAvoy. And I think right now is about, and then we even had one where they're both in the same movie. And I think
true. That's true.
You know, this is just a time to relaunch it. And then, hey, if they get Deadpool into the stable, I'm sure he'll make a comment about the recasting of both McAvoy and Stewart and who's the new Professor X. It would just seem appropriate.
Well, speaking of which, I love the fact that Bob Iger actually addressed the Deadpool issue. And basically, it's like, as long as we make people aware that a Deadpool movie is, in fact, a Deadpool movie, we have no problem with that.
Right.
I'm kind of encouraged by that. That evidently the same assurances that were made to Pixar and were made to Lucasfilm and were made to Marvel, the whole notion of like, that's your silo. What you guys do, we love. And so we'll respect that. We'll support that. We're not here to mess with what you do well. We're just here to put the might of the Disney company behind you from a promotion point of view, from a licensing point of view, and to possibly leverage these things across all of our delivery platforms and into our cruise lines and our theme parks. So it's not a notion of we're not out to change what you do, especially when you look at the financials from the Deadpool movie. And speaking of financials, just a day or so ago, Disney announced that they crossed the $6 billion mark at the global box office. And a quarter of that total came from two Marvel movies. Guardians of the Galaxy worldwide made $863.5 million, and Thor Ragnarok to date has made $844 million.
Right.
Now, before we launch into talking about 2018, Aaron was nice enough to share his take on this year and the stuff that you thought that worked so well. And I would really love to step over into that stuff now, because I love how you hit on what worked and what didn't this year.
Well, I mean, again, these are all opinions, and if anyone disagrees, then we respect your opinion and post them in the comments, because we like to see what other people think. But we only have 3 movies to go over so quickly. Coming in at number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It was a great movie, but other movies were an inch better. Number 2, Thor Ragnarok. Again, super great movie. I loved it just an inch more than Guardians of the Galaxy. And then number 1, because I'm a Spider-Man fan, should be no surprise, Spider-Man Homecoming is my number 1 movie of the year. Honestly, I think all 3 of them could be tied for number 1, because it was a very, very strong year for Marvel movies, and none of them were duds. I mean, as you just said, Jim, from how much they made, there's nothing wrong with any of these movies. So it was a great year for Marvel, and it was kind of stupid to have to make a list, because I should just be able to put them all at number 1, but I think that would be the cheap way out, so we have to put them in order.
before I forget here, it's worth noting that of the three, the one that came in at the highest gross worldwide, and that was $880 million, that was Spider-Man Homecoming. To be fair, Thor Ragnarok does still have to chug around the world, and there will be other territories it's opening up in. But that's a tough number to beat.
They're all very, very strong movies, and I think they're all good character progressions for the characters. Thor seemed kind of stagnant. From movie 1, he had a nice little arc where he was unworthy, then he was worthy. 2, he didn't seem to grow very much as a character. And then the third one, it was an evolution, I think, for Thor as a character. So I really enjoyed all 3 movies very, very much. They're all great.
It's kind of intriguing that, you're such a big fan of what Marvel did for film, whereas television, not so much. So
no, I have a few problems. So we did hit on that. I thought Iron Fist was very, very bad, and it didn't hit the bottom spot. So what is the worst of 2017 in Marvel television? I think most people would agree it's Inhumans. My note specifically next to it calls it flaming garbage, and you can feel free to drop it off the queue. I really tried to root for it. I made it all the way through, and it was just like, no, I'm not coming back for a second season of this. Number 6 is Iron Fist. Again, smoldering garbage. Feel free to drop it off the queue. You won't be missing much. If anything, the character of Annoying... I called him Annoying Fist. The problem of Iron Fist is that he's a mostly annoying character. Every episode, he says he's the immortal Iron Fist, and he's almost beaten by some lackey who barely knows Kung Fu. The fighting is very stilted and looks horrible if you compare it to something like Daredevil. So it was rough around the edges in a bad way. Moving on to number 5, Runaways. I had no expectations for it to be anything, and it turned out to be really pretty decent. And it was actually going to be almost number 4 until Jim gave a thumbs up to this season's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I had to plow through and get caught up to that, and he's right. I had to move it up the queue. It is now higher in priority than it was about 2 weeks ago. My number 3, Defenders. I was happy to see the entire team together, with the exception of Iron Fist. Feel free to move it up your queue if you were a fan of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Daredevil, because it was great to see them to come together. My number 2 for Marvel Television is Punisher. It was brutal, but it also had a much-needed character arc for the Punisher to develop beyond the big guy with the guns. And then, surprise, surprise, my number 1 Marvel TV isn't really a legitimate Marvel. It's a Fox Marvel, and that's Legion. It was crazy insane to watch. I think it broke 90% of the rules of television. Took me totally by surprise. I was thoroughly engrossed. Yes, there may be some flaws within the entire series, but it was so unique and it stood out, and it took so many risks that I felt it had to be number 1 there.
Okay, so now, having looked at 2017, and that's getting ready to go in the rearview mirror here, it's now time to pivot to 2018, which is really shaping up to be an incredible year for Marvel and Disney fans. And in fact, for those of you who are kind of intrigued about what I was talking about previously, the Marvel-ous sea sailings, Disney's got 8 of these set up for the spring of 2018. They start on the first week of January, and they look like every 2 and 3 weeks they get them going. These are 5-day cruises, January 21st to February 4th, the 18th of February, then there's one in March on the 18th, and then 3 in April, the 1st, the 15th, and 29th. But if any of you folks actually do one of these cruises, we'd love to hear from you about how you feel about it, just what it was like. Did they think it was worth the value? But again, let's remember the other thing, the early part of next year is February 16th. We've got Black Panther dropping. And obviously, again, this is the character that was introduced back in April of 2016 with the Russo brothers' Captain America Civil War. There's been a really well-received trailer out there. But what's kind of intriguing to me is, of course, you've got the trailer for the actual movie, but you've also got the trailer for Infinity Wars that shows the Black Panther character right in the middle of that battle. In fact, all of us are aware that they filmed Infinity Wars as basically 2 films, and that the second film, which is now known as Avengers 4, drops on May 3rd, 2019. But in between these 2 films, we've got on July 16th, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp. But I want to say that when I saw the Infinity Wars footage at the D23 Expo, and remember, there's a number of chunks of footage they showed us there that haven't shown up in teaser trailers, that haven't showed up in anything. I want to say that I saw Ant-Man in this thing. And if that's the case, how do you do this is a standalone story? I guess, do you just pick up after what we saw in the last Ant-Man movie, or...
Well, think about how Marvel handled Tony Stark in Iron Man 3 after the first Avengers. He had his whole post-traumatic stress thing. So far, Ant-Man had his solo adventure. He's been in Civil War. He will have already been in Avengers Infinity War by that point. So when it comes to Ant-Man and the Wasp, he will have had quite a bit of history already behind him, so they can really take him anywhere. There could be leftover bad guys from Infinity War they have to deal with. I think Kevin Feige mentioned after Spider-Man Homecoming, a lot of the materials that were in the plane crash at the end of the movie could be used later as bits and pieces of fodder for other superheroes to have to deal with throughout later parts of the movies. So they really could go absolutely anywhere with Ant-Man, regardless of what happens in the Avengers. Also, every hero will be in the Avengers Infinity War movie, pretty much.
Yep.
I'm assuming due to contracts, some of them won't come out alive. I'm also just taking a wild guess that Avengers 4 will be called the New Avengers. I do believe Ant-Man and Wasp, since it will be the first movie after Avengers Infinity War, there will be repercussions felt or echoing through that movie. But I also believe that because it's titled Ant-Man and the Wasp, that it will be some sort of team up that they have to complete whatever the objective is. And honestly, when you break down storytelling, there's man versus man, man versus self, and man versus nature. So they can either be battling a bad guy, they can be battling some cosmic, unnatural nature element, or they can be battling amongst themselves. I think it's going to be a bad guy.
Okay. Friends have been sneaking me footage. They've been shooting in and around the streets of Atlanta, doing some pretty spectacular car-related stunts lately. So
cool.
Cannot wait to see how this cuts together. And we talked about the Venom film that's coming out in October of next year. But the films I was most excited to see changed this month when that trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out of Sony Pictures Animation.
That was really beautiful.
Well, it's actually my daughter that pointed out to me that so much of that film echoes the look of the comics, that it's not just an animated feature. It is a legitimate attempt to do a Marvel comic book movie in the style of the actual books. The trailer was just so spectacular.
Here's the main thing about what I noticed for the look of the Spider-Man trailer, Into the Spider-Verse, is that my belief is DC Animation has been killing it with their animated movies. And a lot of stuff I watch from Marvel in comparison just doesn't look as good. I mean, there's something about the animation that has seemed 25 cents less than whatever DC is putting out. And it always kind of bums me out that DC is just rocking it so hard, and I'm wishing Marvel were better. And I think this is Sony, if they can't do a live-action film without it being Marvel, they can always jump into the Miles Morales story, which hasn't been told yet in any form outside of comic books. So they can really make something that looks gloriously beautiful, that beats anything DC's been done to date. And I think they just raised the bar with what an animated film can look like for both Marvel and DC.
This is supposed to be the Jane, you ignorant slut moment, where we disagree on something. But I have to say that you are so dead on with the DC animated things. In fact, it has always made me crazy that you look at these amazing DC home premieres and how well they look and how the great animation and how well they're written. And then you look at what's going on the feature, the theatrical releases, and it's just sort of like, why is it that you do such good quality work, film after film after film with these home premieres. And nobody thinks that let's bring those guys over to work on the features.
Yeah.
When you look at the body of work, and I want to say just recently they released an anniversary package where it was 20 some odd of these movies, and there isn't a dud in the bunch.
Right.
And it makes me crazy that it's like they do such good work. In fact, this is really telling. My daughter, Alice, is out visiting with me right now. And so we've been going out and catching some movies. And so just the other day, it's like, hey, we could go out and catch Justice League because neither of us have seen it. And Alice is like, yeah. How about The Disaster Artist, where it's a movie about celebrating a really terrible movie? And it's like, she wants to go see that over seeing Justice League.
Actually, I would probably take The Disaster Artist over Justice League as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sorry for you folks at Warner's, but again, do the smart thing. Go reach out to Paul Dini and Andrea Romano and all of those folks. They have done killer work for decades. Why wouldn't you bring them into the building to do the actual features? I don't understand this.
Wonder Woman is a step in the right direction,
True.
and latest Justice League was better than Batman versus Superman. So as long as I'm seeing improvement, I'm not going to just poop all over their plate.
No, I get that. I absolutely. So, all right. Well, anyway, it's not just the films we're looking forward to. It's also what Marvel Television has got in works for 2018. And again, I love your list, Aaron. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. It's funny because I got to switch S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways again. So we're going to just start at the bottom. At Inhumans and Iron Fist, please be canceled. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. I never want to wish an actor or a creative person out of work, but it's just, I guess with Inhumans, it was just, what's the Muppet joke? I've seen better film on teeth.
Yes.
I mean,
okay.
How do you make Hawaii look bad? All right. Anyway.
I think it would take way too much for them to reinvent the show and new writers and, building sets that aren't just white concrete, as you mentioned previously. I mean, they would have to make a boatload of changes very drastically, and it's just like, I don't think anybody was on board from the beginning. Go ahead and let it go. And the dude that never said anything, Black Bolt, I thought he was one of the most interesting characters, and he never said a word. So what's that tell you?
Well, Marcel Marceau had quite the career.
He did. No, he did good for not speaking. I thought it was a brave choice for an actor, honestly. I gave him credit for that much. But moving on, number 7, Runaways. I enjoyed it, but it's half season right now, so I don't know. It could go either way. So far, it's pretty decent. And then we move on to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have no idea where they're going. It's one of the first times I've been excited about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a long time, so that's a good vibe. We'll move up to number 5, Cloak and Dagger. I haven't seen anything about it except that they're going to do it. And so right now, it's a world of possibility in my mind. They could go, as crazy as Legion or as vanilla as Inhumans. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out.
I guess my only concern, are you familiar with the webcomic Hark a Vagrant?
No.
They did a wonderful series of cartoons about Cloak and Dagger, and basically about the poor young lady who wears the dagger outfit, where it's sort of like, where exactly are you getting this thing that shows that much cleavage?
Well, I'm assuming that they will make more appropriate costume changes, much like Scarlet Witch in the Avengers is not wearing a leotard. So
there we go.
I'm sure there'll be some costume changes and it won't be 100% sexualized.
Here we go.
Moving up the list, number 4, Luke Cage Season 2. I really, really enjoyed Luke Cage Season 1. He would have been up there in my top list, but he was a 2016 show, so I couldn't put him there, but we're going to get him back in 2018, and I'm excited for that. Also, we've got Daredevil Season 3. Don't know when the date is. They haven't announced it, but they said sometime in 2018. And where they left Daredevil at the end of The Defenders makes me say, well, how are they going to handle that one? So I'm ready for that. My number 2 is Legion Season 2. Again, wasn't a proper Marvel thing. That was a Fox TV show, but It blew my sweet little mind wide open, and I loved it so much I'm going to throw it in the list, and my list, my rules. And then we go to my number one most anticipated, Jessica Jones Season 2. And the reason is I just love the cast so much. David Tennant is wonderful. David Tennant, who played Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we love, love, love that specific incarnation of Doctor Who so very, very much. And to see him play a bad guy, but a charming bad guy who's motivated out of a pure love, no matter how sick and twisted it was, he still had a charm and a menace in the same sentence that you really have to be a really deep, complex actor to be able to find both of those things and put them on display like that. So I just really have a great appreciation for him as the bad guy. And Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, I think she's gorgeous, and I think she's powerful, and I like her. I like the fact that they don't hide the fact that she's a bit of a drunk. You know, they didn't really wash that up and sanitize her. They give her faults, and she's got a lot of growing to do, and I just cannot wait for season 2. So that's my number one.
The 1-2 punch of Kristen Ritter and David Tennant. He was the Doctor Who that got me into the new Doctor Who. In fact, I remember coming home for Christmas and I come across this footage of David Tennant at the wheel of what turned out to be the space Titanic. And it was falling out of the sky and about to land on Buckingham Palace. And it was one of these things. What the hell am I watching?
Right.
And I was completely sucked in from that moment. And then the plus of that he turned out to be such a wonderful doctor. And then it's been a wonderful run. And the nice young woman who's about to take over for the doctor, she has some awfully big high heels to fill.
All right, fans, be listening for our Doctor Who podcast coming in a couple of weeks after the new year.
All right. Well, all right. Now, this being the holidays, you have come up with going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe from best to least. And your mileage may vary, but Aaron, can you walk us through what your take is on the film so far?
Yeah, I thought about it for a while, and I've watched all of the movies many, 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 many dozens of times. What I ended up making the list, I started noticing that all of the independent movies where it's just a single character ended up towards the bottom of the list, and anything that had the groups of characters coming together magically floated to the top of the list. And I just think that it ended up as a result of there's so many great character moments built into those. And when you love all the characters and you put them all together, it's just a smorgasbord of delicious fun. So the way that my list started off is, I believe, the weakest movie out of the entire Marvel universe. I'm sorry, Thor, but you won it for Dark World. It's just one of those movies. It's the one I go back to the least. And then the next one at number 16, Incredible Hulk, with the Ed Norton version of Incredible Hulk. Mm-hmm. And it still has a couple of Easter eggs that are maintained through Captain America, like the serum vial is the same in the movie. So, I mean, they still keep their Easter eggs planted firmly in sight. Incredible Hulk being attacked by Stark weaponry and stuff like that. So it's officially part of the canon of the official MCU. Number 15, Iron Man 2. And then right behind that at number 14, Iron Man 3. And I think that Iron Man 2 is a lesser movie. Iron Man 3 was just a bit better. And then we get to number 13, Thor. And I think I got a thing for Natalie Portman, so that may have influenced it just a little bit. Unfortunately, she did not help one iota for Dark World. I don't know why that is. Number 12, Doctor Strange. 11, Ant-Man. And again, these are all introductions. Number 10, Captain America, the First Avenger. Number 9, Iron Man. All of those are the very first movie for those characters. And then when you get to number 8, this is where it changes. Guardians of the Galaxy, still the first movie, but you got to team up. Number 7, Avengers, Age of Ultron. Number 6, Captain America, Winter Soldier. That was a really great movie. A lot of people, I think, would place that a couple notches higher on their list. Number 5, and again, it's the only reason it's down there is because this year was so strong with Marvel movies. Number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Number 4, the first Avengers movie. I really loved it. It was the first time I got to have all my characters together. And every time I watch it, I still get that sense of joy of them coming together for the first time. Moving on to number 3, Thor Ragnarok. Just an excellent, fun, crazy, wild ride. And then number 2, Captain America Civil War. Again, you got your heroes all going against each other. You got Ant-Man turning into Giant Man. You got your first appearance of Spider-Man. And that leads directly to number 1. No surprise, Spider-Man Homecoming. I acknowledge personal favoritism of my hero. Again, my list, my rules. I'd love to see what your list is in the comments.
The weird thing of it is that one of the strengths of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that if you've paid attention, there's that wonderful moment in the fight at the end of Captain America Civil War where you have Captain America actually say to Iron Man, I could do this all day. Which is the throwback to Captain America. The first event. And it's the whole notion of, for an audience that's seen both of those movies and the years that spanned that.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, it's weird that you do that and you go in and it freshens the character in your mind, which in the case of Thor Ragnarok made the film that much more fun because it was such an obvious departure from everything they'd done previously.
Oh, yeah, from going from level 17 worst movie out of the entire MCU to being number 3 in the span of one movie. And usually, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't sequels usually a diminishing return?
No, in fact, that actually used to be the rule of thumb.
Used to be?
Yeah. I remember talking once with Ralph Winter, the gentleman who produced the Star Trek movies, and he was talking about the fact that in each case, when he went back to Paramount, he'd have to creep in the financial budget because it was like, when he went to Paramount, they knew from the multiple decades they've been in the business that, yes, it's a Star Trek movie. It will make money, but it won't make as much money as the one before it. So in each case, it's like, here's your infinitely tighter financial box. Figure out how to make this movie.
And usually the stars want more money for every time they come back to the character. It's not like their paycheck goes down with every movie.
That's it, exactly. So it then became that much more challenging. Oh, I meant to mention, though, that given that you were such a big fan of the gentleman who directed Thor Ragnarok, did you see where Kathleen Kennedy, the woman who's in charge of Lucasfilm, actually expressed an interest in having him come to do a Star Wars film?
Wow.
That's a Christmas future thing, folks. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but she has expressed an interest, and that would be something very cool to find under the tree.
Yeah, more? Yeah.
Before I forget, speaking of cool stuff under the tree, a lot of listeners to the Marvel-ous Disney podcast particularly enjoyed when Aaron deconstructed how to do Thor's hammer. And I want to say that was our second episode?
Yeah.
And so Aaron's got another Marvel-related goodie for you, something else sound-wise. And again, he's previewed it for me, and it's like, I want this so bad in real life, especially during those moments when things go south at the Thanksgiving table. And it's like, oh, yeah? So please explain what you put together for us today.
I guess we're kind of sticking with all of the Avengers at the moment and doing all of their traditional sounds. So we were going to move from Thor's hammer to Iron Man's repulsor blast. And we're going to play just like a little snippet. This will be from Civil War when Iron Man blasts Falcon into the dirt after War Machine plummets into it and makes a nice little crater. So here's that sound from the movie. And if you listen very closely to it, what you're going to hear actually is kind of like in the very beginning of the sound, there's a metallic switch type of toggling sound. And I really didn't have any overly metallic switches available to grab that sound. So I've grabbed a couple different switches. I'm going to blend them together, and I'm also going to EQ them and add a little bit of reverb to them and some other fancy stuff to try and give them more of a metallic sheen. And then the second portion of the sound is quite simply, if you remember old camera flashes where they had to charge up and they'd make this annoying whining noise that sounded exactly like this. You remember those, Jim?
Oh, God, yes. Well, that was the thing. As soon as I heard that, it's like, oh, okay.
Smile for the next 10 seconds. It's almost ready. Hold it.
There you go.
So we've got a camera flash wind up. And then he's got a very sci-fi type of repulsor blast when the blast actually exits the gauntlet. And, you know, I've only got so many sounds to work with, so I grabbed something that was kind of a sci-fi blast. It's not a 100% match. Again, I did a little bit of EQ and some flange and some other silly things to kind of alter the shape of the sound a little bit to make it seem a little bit closer to Iron Man's blast. And it's actually made of several parts. We got a sci-fi blast sound effect that sounds like this. We've got a gunshot, and I'm actually going to take the actual bullet exiting the chamber, the bang, out of it, and I'm only going to use the echo. So if you were to shoot a gun across an open field, it wouldn't be the shot, it would be the echoing across the field is all we're going to keep from that. And then we've got a very loud cannon boom. It's going to add the oomph and the power. And then after that, we need a body fall. So now we're just going to edit a couple of those together. We've got our clicks together. We've sped up just a little bit the pitch and the whine of the camera flash. And then we've put together the echo of the gunshot, the loud boom of the cannon, and then the sci-fi blast. We meld all of those together. And then, of course, to make sure someone got hurt from Tony's blast, you got to have a little body fall. And I lowered the volume quite a bit to kind of put him off in the distance to make it seem like he was kind of far away. And now we put all those elements together, connect the dots, hit play, and you get this quasi-Iron Man homemade gauntlet blast. And then one more time, just for comparison, here's the original one more time. It's not quite, but it's close enough to where if you played it for someone, they would go, was that an Iron Man blast? It sounded kind of like an Iron Man blast. It's just enough to fool someone.
No. I mean, again,
Disney's got more money in their audio department than I do. That's a sad fact, and I'm okay to admit that.
it's kind of the RC Cola version. Let's put it that way.
Right.
All right.
That's fine.
It's
It's
pretty
the rip-off.
damn close. Okay. And more to the point, I just love when you pop the hood on sound like this. It's a part of the business that absolutely fascinates me.
It's a lot of fun.
One of my heroes, a gentleman named Ben Burt.
Oh, he is a lord of audio.
There we go.
The pinnacle, the absolute pinnacle.
There's kind of a sad story this month in Vanity Fair where they talk about how for The Last Jedi, this is the first film that Ben hasn't worked on. And in fact, it was not by choice. He's the audio guy who's worked on virtually all of the Lucasfilms. You know, I mean, all of the way back to the original Star Wars
All
and
the
New Hope.
cartoons
Yeah.
and everything. It's like every sound that was ever created for the Star Wars universe. Now, with that being said, they've got such a back catalog of sounds that he's created. I mean, R2's not really making any new sounds lately.
No.
So, I mean, he's given them decades of sound, and a lot of it was never used.
No, in fact, the article does touch on that. But again, you know, what I love about when you talk with audio guys, they're the ones, like, for example, he was the one, I want to say it's a high tension wire.
Yeah, for the laser blasters, you'd ping it with a hammer or a metal wrench, and the vibration of it as it travels up the wire is the laser blast as it moves away from the gun to the target.
No, that's it exactly. I mean, again, only audio guys, only guys who work in that field, I mean, can hear a sound and realize what else it could be. I mean, don't get me wrong. One of my favorite Ben Burt stories was when he was putting together the soundtrack for Temple of Doom, and he literally spent a night at Disneyland backstage at Big Thunder Mountain and the Matterhorn and that sort of thing, recording roller coaster noises that he then used for the mine train scenes.
Yeah. I got one Ben Burt theory. I haven't been able to prove it yet, but it's a hypothesis. Are you familiar with the Wilhelm scream?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
If people aren't familiar with the Wilhelm scream, it's the oldest scream in the world. It's been used in all the Star Wars movies, Indiana Jones. If you hear it, you'll know it.
Yep.
But anyway, it's been used as kind of like an Easter egg by sound designers in practically every movie since Wilhelm screamed it in the beginning. So Ben Burt did the sound design. It was Attack of the Clones. It was the scene where Jango Fett is chasing Obi-Wan through the asteroid field, and he has this seismic detonator. And as it floats towards Obi-Wan's ship, all of the sound gets kind of sucked away, and it becomes perfectly silent. And then there's this very loud and this beautiful blue circle of light, and it was the most amazing sound I'd ever heard in Star Wars. he will not tell anybody how he made that one sound. That's going to be his secret sound that he's going to take with him to his grave. My theory is that he manipulated the Wilhelm scream to high heaven 100 different ways to create that sound, and that was his last Wilhelm to end all Wilhelms. I truly think that because it's such a tradition to have it in every movie, and I don't even think it's in episode 2. So I'm wondering if he was just like, oh yeah, we'll get it in there, but nobody will ever know it, and it's going to be my little secret. Wow. So I've been working with Wilhelm screams to see if I can duplicate it. It hasn't worked so far, but I'm no Ben Burt.
Well, I apologize, folks. We've wandered a little far afield here of Marvel.
We did, but we talked about sound, and there I go.
There we go.
No.
But again, this is what's different about this podcast, folks. We give you Disney, we give you Marvel, we give you Lucasfilm. We go in a lot of different directions here, which was why, again, if you like what you hear here, please be supportive. Tell your friends about it. Get on iTunes, comment about the show. And again, in 2018, Aaron and I will have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. And actually, just to give a little plug back to one of your other shows, you were speaking about Guardians of the Galaxy, the old Tower of Terror. Mm-hmm. You did a longer podcast, more in depth with Len on Disney Dish. And I think you did an entire episode pretty much about that whole experience. So if people are curious, we can always go back to the Disney Dish podcast with Jim and Len and find out a whole bunch more about that from those episodes.
The network here is bumping out its borders. I mean, Len just started that Turing Plans podcast. And we're kind of kicking the tires of the Lucasfilm podcast, but we'll get to that soon enough, folks.
The Touring Plans podcast is absolutely essential if you think you're going to go to Disney World anytime in the next calendar year. And again, it was one of those things where they send me the audio and I start to edit it and I go, okay, what do we got here? And I learned so much where I was just like, oh my God, I think I want to go plan a trip to Disney right now because I think I can actually afford it, because they had a lot of ways to save money in that episode to where I used to think going to Disney was impossible on our budget. And now it's all, hey, I might be able to pull this one off. It's a good thing to check out if you have any interest of thinking about the possibility of going to Disney World or Disneyland.
Absolutely. But of course, you want to wait to 2019 because that's when the Guardian rides open up. But we'll talk about that in a future Marvel-ous Disney podcast. So for Aaron and myself, this is Jim Hill, and thanks for listening.